I was the girl next door. Chloe Reed was the girl who fell from the sky. People say the girl next door never stands a chance against the mysterious newcomer. I didn't want to believe it, but the whispers spread quickly. Someone claimed they'd seen them together in the deserted stairwell after school, Chloe talking while Jackson King, my Jax, the boy who never bowed to anyone, stood with his head lowered like he'd been tamed. Not long after, when Chloe and I had a small clash, his verdict sealed my fate. One quiet command from him: I don't want Aubrey Hale at this school anymore. My parents didn't argue. Afraid of losing their business ties with the King family, they transferred me without hesitation. Within a week, I was gone, erased from his world. I stayed hidden, too afraid to cross his path again. But on his birthday, he appeared at my door. Soaked by the rain, his face was wrecked with sorrow. "Did you forget?" he asked, voice breaking. "Did you forget it's my birthday?" They always say the childhood friend can't compete with the girl who suddenly takes center stage. I used to think that was just nonsense. But sitting in the school auditorium, I saw his gaze locked on Chloe as she danced, full of light and grace, and I realized it was true. The raw adoration in his eyes told me everything. He hadn't even tried to hide it. The rumors I once dismissed suddenly felt real. The legendary Jax King, untouchable and untamed, had let Chloe Reed bend him in ways no one else could. The confession I had carried in my chest for years, waiting for the right moment, would never see the light. When the music ended, I clapped along with everyone else, my hands moving automatically as Chloe bowed beneath the spotlight. Jax rose immediately, heading toward the wings to find her. I stood as well, but my feet carried me out of the auditorium instead. Outside, the evening air was crisp. I lifted my hand and let the little wooden star charm he had once given me spin in the breeze. "Aubrey, this is for you." I remembered the tiny carving in his palm. "What's that?" I'd asked. 7-year-old Jax had been blushing from something he'd picked up watching a soap opera with his aunt. "It's a promise," he said. "You have to wear it. It means you'll always like me best." Then, with solemn sincerity, "And I'll always protect you, Aubrey." The memory burned behind my eyes. A child's vow wasn't supposed to mean anything, but I had let it mean everything. To me, Jax King wasn't just the reckless boy who broke rules and hearts. He was the brightest part of my youth, the truth I built my world around. Chloe had entered Crestwood at the start of the semester. Gorgeous, graceful, and already trained as a dancer, she drew everyone's attention immediately. The girls in my class cast her as the lead in their favorite kind of story, the quiet transfer student who captures the attention of the school's untouchable bad boy, the one who inevitably tames him. Plenty of boys lined up to win Chloe's attention. Someone even joked that the only one left was Jax. Jax had leaned back in his chair, stretching lazily, and sent the guy a look sharp enough to cut. "Her? You're kidding, right?" That was the Jax I knew, the one no one could touch. So I never believed the rumors. Not until I saw it in his eyes. He hadn't told me outright, hadn't said he belonged to someone else, but the truth was clear. It was time for me to pull back, to put real distance between us. For years, we had walked home together. I can't even recall when it became routine. But lately, he always had a reason to send me ahead. He could have just told me. I wouldn't have begged. I wouldn't have clung. Because deep down I knew we were never really his to begin with. Sunday evenings were for study hall, and assignments were due. Jax was the kind of student who, when asked about his homework, would give the teaching assistant a blank stare and say, "Didn't do it." He used to listen to me, though. Everyone knew it. So whenever he pulled that stunt, the complaints came to me. That's what happened tonight. Except no one could even find him. He'd slipped out after the last bell, probably off to meet Chloe. "Aubrey, Jax didn't turn in his homework again, and he's not in his seat. Can you just hand in what you've got?" I said, giving a small, tight smile. "You don't need to tell me about his homework anymore." My classmate nodded slowly, as if my calm tone confirmed every rumor about Jax and Chloe. I bent over my prep book when class resumed. Before Chloe, my plan had been for Jax and me to go to Northwood University together. Now the plan was just to work hard and get in on my own for my own dream. Jax didn't come back for the entire period. The teacher on duty frowned from her desk at the front of the room and asked where he was. Every head turned to me. I kept my eyes on my paper, refusing to acknowledge them. He reappeared only during second period, sliding into his seat without a word. A classmate leaned over and murmured that the principal wanted to see him. Jax blinked like he'd been yanked out of a daze. As he walked past my desk, he paused for a fraction of a second. I didn't look up. I was stuck on the final problem of my math worksheet, the kind where the first part was easy, but the second froze your brain. When I finally figured it out, my desk mate, Maya, leaned closer. "Hey, you, and Jack's okay?" she whispered. "Everything's fine." "Really? Because you used to get more upset than anyone when he skipped class or blew off homework." Her words stung. "That was then," I said, my voice flatter than I meant. "I'm not dealing with his stuff anymore." "Oh." Her eyes widened as she pieced it together. "So it's true? About him and Chloe Reed?" I looked down at my book and said nothing. The final bell rang. A few minutes later, Jax ambled back into the room. A folded piece of paper landed on my desk. "Go home without me." I stared at the familiar scrawl, then folded the note calmly and tucked it away before returning to my work. The classroom was a swirl of noise as everyone packed up. I moved slowly, organizing my binder. Then a hush fell over the room. Maya gasped. I followed her gaze to the doorway. Chloe Reed was standing there. She tilted her head, crooked a finger at Jax, and turned to leave. I couldn't stop myself from looking at him. A helpless, almost tender smile spread across his face as he grabbed his backpack and followed her. The second he was gone, the room erupted. Holy crap, so it's real. I thought he and Aubrey were endgame, the bad boy and the good girl. But I guess the bad boy and the dancer, that kind of fits, huh? Don't be a jerk. Does anyone else feel bad for Aubrey? They've known each other their whole lives.
See?
The girl next door never wins. Maya looked at me with pity she was trying to hide. I slung my backpack over my shoulder. My heart felt like it was caught in a vice, but I forced a smile. I would not cry. Not here. If I showed how much it hurt, I'd be the punchline of their jokes for the rest of the year. "I'm fine," I told Maya, meeting her worried eyes. "Jax and I have only ever been friends. I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, get home safe." Once I stepped out of the noisy building, I gripped the straps of my backpack until my knuckles went white. I bit my lip hard, but the tears still came, hot, silent, blurring the streetlights. A heavy pressure built in my chest. How could he just start liking someone else? Out of nowhere, my vision swam. In my mind, a younger voice echoed, cocky and sure. "Don't worry, Aubrey. I can do anything. And I've got you. For life." "Aubrey, why didn't you wait for me this morning?" Jax had been late again. He cornered me after first period, setting a carton of milk on my desk like it was a peace offering. His voice carried mock injury, playful but expectant. My pen stilled over my vocabulary list. I looked at the milk. "I already ate," I said quietly. "And I'm not walking with you anymore. I've been coming to school earlier." He dropped into the empty chair beside me, brows furrowing in confusion. Propping his chin on his hand, he asked, "Did I do something? We've always walked together." "It's different now." I forced a smile and laid my pen aside. "You have a girlfriend, Jax. We need some space." His face went still for a moment before dawning realization hit. "She won't care. She knows about you. I care." I made sure each word landed sharp. "I don't want to be the excuse you two fight about. I don't want to be the problem." Aubrey. Patience was never one of Jax King's strengths. The fact that he'd let me speak this much was a miracle in itself. But I could feel the edge of it, slipping. His jaw tightened. He shot to his feet, the chair screeching harshly against the floor. The sound clawed at my nerves.
"Fine," he snapped.
"Whatever you want." And then he walked out. I lowered my head, shutting my eyes against the sudden sting. I'd spent the night on my balcony, cold air biting at my skin as I debated. Should I keep pretending, playing the loyal friend while hiding the crush that was choking me? Or was it finally time to let the bond we'd carried since childhood break apart? They say love is written all over your face, impossible to hide. If I stayed at his side, it wouldn't be fair, to me or to Chloe. No girlfriend wants her boyfriend's too close best friend hanging around. From that day forward, Jax stopped speaking to me. If we passed in the hallway, his gaze slipped past me as though I were a stranger. The girl walking beside him was no longer me. It was Chloe. He introduced her to his circle, the world that had once been ours. She was his first love, the one he went crazy over. So I buried myself in schoolwork. Like everyone else, I heard the stories of their whirlwind romance through whispers and rumors. Chloe dieting dangerously for a dance competition, and Jax arranging special meals through his family chef to keep her healthy. A rival school jock harassing Chloe in an alley, and Jack supposedly beating him so badly he ended up in the hospital. Through it all, I climbed back to the top of the class rankings on our monthly exams. My guidance counselor once told me to stop worrying about Jax, that he was dragging me down. The Kings had more money than they knew what to do with. It didn't matter whether Jax even graduated. That afternoon, I stared at the sunset blazing through the windows. Aubrey, where do you want to go for college? I remembered that summer day vividly. Jax had been next to me, idly twirling a strand of my hair around his finger. Northwood University, I'd answered instantly. That's so far. But I never told him the real reason. It wasn't just that Northwood was prestigious. It was that I needed to escape, away from this place, away from that house. My father had been a cliché. The moment he got rich, he chased after another woman. My mother refused to divorce him, convinced it was her fault for not giving him a son. In the dead of night, she would sometimes unravel, pointing a shaking finger at me, blaming me for being born a girl. If I had been a boy, she said, maybe her husband would have stayed. Eventually, she did have a son. My father came back briefly, but once my brother was born, her entire world revolved around him. She had her son, her security for the future. Okay, then I'll go to Northwood too, Jax had declared with a cocky grin. You're hopeless without me. You'd be a disaster on your own. That boy, smug and radiant, had been my only light in a fractured world. I clung to him, willing to waste years just orbiting his life, even sacrifice my own ambitions. Even if I couldn't make it to Northwood, I once thought it would be enough just to go wherever he went. Rumors spread fast, and the latest one was vicious. People were whispering that Chloe had stolen Jax from me. On the way back from the restroom with Maya, I caught sight of Chloe bolting down the stairs, her face buried in her hands as she cried. Moments later, Jax came storming up. His eyes locked on me, blazing with fury. Before I could react, he slammed me back against the wall, his hand clamping down on my throat. I thought you wanted distance, Aubrey, he hissed, his face inches from mine. So tell me, what the hell is this about? I clawed at his grip, my chest burning for air. Maya rushed forward, shoving at him. Are you out of your mind? We were just in the bathroom. Let her go, you're choking her. Jax jerked his hand back, as if scalded. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. You're pathetic, he spat, before stalking away. Maya crouched beside me, steadying me with an arm. Don't cry, Aubrey. Something's seriously wrong with him and that girlfriend of his. But I couldn't stop the tears. For one terrifying second, I had truly believed he was going to kill me. The boy I'd once known no longer existed. Later that day, a classmate slid a phone onto my desk. On the Crestwood Confessions page, someone had accused Chloe of being the other woman. The comments section was savage, tearing her apart. I wanted to set the record straight. I planned to message the admin that night, bruises still fresh on my throat. But when I walked through the door at home, my parents were waiting. Their faces were thunderous. What did you do to upset Jackson King? My father roared, a glass shattering against the wall near my head. Do you know how much our business depends on the Kings? Do you want to ruin everything for us? My mother joined in, shrill and cutting, calling me useless. My father decided then I would apologize to Jax immediately. I was shoved out the door, marched to the King's mansion. I had rehearsed what to say, ready to deny the rumor and promise to have it removed. But when the door opened, Jax stood there under the porch light, looking down at me with eyes like ice. My words failed me. I bowed my head. I apologized. He leaned lazily against the doorframe. Don't show your face at school again, Aubrey. My parents fawned over him, swearing I'd never trouble him again. I lifted my head, but under the cold porch light, I could no longer make out his expression. All I knew was that my pride had been ground into dust. We were never equals. A boy like him belonged to a different world, one I never should have believed I could reach. The moon doesn't come down to the well just because you dream of it. That night, I started packing. My transfer was arranged. 2 weeks later, I was living in a tiny rented room near Westwood High. My parents insisted it was safer if I stayed away from home, away from the chance of ever running into him again. Westwood was on the opposite side of the city. In a place this big, unless you tried, paths didn't cross. Hey, Hale, you coming to watch my basketball game tonight? I looked up. Caleb Hayes grinned down at me, his black and white jersey slung over his shoulder, his sharp eyes glinting with mischief. On my first day, a girl had whispered the gossip. Caleb was the school's notorious heartbreaker, as famous for his charm as he was for his looks. For 2 weeks straight, he had tried to win me over. Everyone noticed. The rumor mill was buzzing, painting him as the reformed playboy chasing his first serious crush. But, to me, a rake was still a rake. I can't, I said evenly. Too much homework. He raised an eyebrow at the stack of practice tests. You know I've been trying for weeks, right? And he chuckled, amused by my indifference. And I want to know why you keep turning me down. The room had mostly emptied. Outside, the sun was setting, casting the world in fiery orange. He leaned on the desk, lowering his voice. You're strange, Aubrey. It's like part of you is already dead inside, but there's still this fierce will to keep going. That contradiction makes you unforgettable. I stared back coolly. Your game's starting. His smirk deepened. It's against Crestwood. He let the name hang deliberately between us, waiting for a reaction. I gave him none. He clicked his tongue, disappointed, and left. Alone, I glanced at the clock. The anonymous post. I had a strong suspicion of who wrote it. But I couldn't see what they hoped to gain. At 6:30, the lights clicked off. Westwood always cut the power sharp. Only the fading sunset lit my way as I packed up and left. Outside, petals drifted from the magnolia trees, carried by the evening breeze. I paused, watching them scatter. That's what my life felt like, fragile, powerless, tossed wherever the wind blew. Wait, wasn't that Aubrey Hale? The voice jolted me. 2 familiar faces stepped into view. Jax's old friends, holding sports drinks, clearly on their way to the gym. Aubrey? You really transferred here? I nodded. They exchanged a look. Jax is here for the game. You should talk to him. Clear things up. Clear things up. As if the boy who knew me best hadn't already decided I was guilty. I don't think. Does it really take you this long to buy a bottle of water? The cold voice cut across the lawn. Jax stood under a tree, his face hidden in shadow, his eyes raking over me like I was no one. His friends shifted uneasily. I forced a smile. I should go.
Bye.
Yeah, bye, Aubrey. Life at Westwood moved at a slower rhythm.
Quiet.
Almost dull. Some days I got stuck in my own head, wondering why it felt like no one in the world cared about me. I was a good student, my name was always on the honor roll. When I was little, my mother used to say that children who brought home good grades were always loved. I grew up and realized that teachers loved those students. My parents never did. So, I buried myself in textbooks. I stopped waiting for anyone else. Exams, competitions, graduation, that became my only horizon. My efforts paid off. I placed first in the district scholastic contest. That day, standing on the podium with the summer wind whipping my uniform, I looked out over the sea of blue and white uniforms. Their eyes held envy and admiration. The principal's voice rang out with every superlative in his vocabulary, but all I felt was the wind and the weight of my own resolve. Time at Westwood felt different. Ivy crept higher up the red brick walls, cicadas screamed louder, sunsets blazed brighter. In the senior hallway, students murmured formulas and vocab lists under their breath, desperate to slow the inevitable march toward exams. I never saw Jax again. It was as if that entire part of my life had been cut away. Those people had never been my friends, only his. When summer began, I didn't go home. Our house was too close to the king's estate, and my parents had only one command for me. If you see Jax, walk the other way. I was 17, on the cusp of my final year of high school. My parents never once asked if I was nervous, never once asked if I was okay. Under the dim yellow glow of a streetlight, I sat on a park bench reciting English verbs. Each word, each formula, each problem solved, they weren't just knowledge. They were stepping stones, paving a road out of here. One afternoon, leaving the library, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I picked up. Silence. After a few moments, I hung up. Aubrey. I looked up. Caleb Hayes jogged over from across the street, still in his basketball uniform, waving as if we were already friends. Behind him, his teammates pretended not to watch. I was just grabbing takeout, I said cautiously. Go eat with your friends.
Nah.
You can't live on takeout. I'm taking you out for a real meal. Before I could object, he grabbed my arm and pulled me along. He led me downtown, to a French restaurant where men wore suits and women dressed for the theater. I looked down at my oversized t-shirt and denim shorts. Caleb hadn't even changed, still in his jersey. We can't go in here dressed like this, I whispered. He blinked at me, unbothered. It's just food, isn't it? And somehow, the sheer confidence in his tone made it sound reasonable. A waiter appeared, polite but unreadable. Table for two? Yeah, Caleb said easily. We were shown to a corner table by what looked like a darkened window. At Caleb's nod, the waiter pressed a switch, and the glass dissolved into a wide screen of glowing sky. The sunset stretched across the city in streaks of gold and crimson. My jaw nearly dropped. It was unreal. When I looked back, the waiter was gone. Caleb slid a heavy menu toward me. Pick something. The prices were staggering. I froze. He caught my hesitation, grinning. Relax. I've got it. Order whatever. I pushed the menu back. You decide. I'm not picky. His eyes glinted. Medium well steak then? Not too bloody. That's fine. As we waited, I leaned forward. You know what I feel like right now? He tilted his head. What? A country bumpkin who just wandered in by mistake. He burst out laughing, and for once it didn't feel rehearsed. Dimples appeared at the corners of his mouth, lit by the last rays of sun. And, against my will, I thought of Jack's. He had a dimple too. Just one. I used to poke it, teasing him to smile more. He rarely did, except faintly, like he was humoring me. But after Chloe arrived, he smiled all the time, sweet, radiant smiles. The truth hit me like a stone. It wasn't that he didn't smile. He just never smiled for me. By the time dinner ended, the sky had turned black and the plaza outside bustled with people. I had a good time today, Caleb said as we stepped outside. His smile softened. It's my birthday. I stared at him.
What?
Why didn't you tell me sooner? I should have paid. He sighed theatrically. Because if I told you, you wouldn't have come. Of course I would have, I said quickly, guilt rising. My mind raced for some kind of gift. That was when he leaned closer, voice brushing my cheek. Thinking about what to give me. His hair was bleached blonde now, windswept and careless, making him look like some sunlit golden retriever. I want that sachet you carry, he said. He meant the little lavender pouch. I'd stitched it by hand for Jax's birthday, before everything fell apart. It had never reached him. And though I could never give it to Jax now, I couldn't bring myself to hand it over to Caleb either. It felt like giving away a rejection. So I said firmly, I'll make you a new one. Later, as we walked back, he asked, Where do you want to go for college? I tilted my head at the sparse stars overhead. Northwood University. Why? Because it snows there. I want to see snow. He nodded silently. At my building, he stopped. See you around, Aubrey. I turned to leave, then glanced back. He stood in the shadows, his smile soft, his eyes unreadable. Something inside me ached. I lifted my hand. Caleb, happy birthday. His smile brightened for real this time, as he waved back. You're going to get into Northwood, Aubrey. I know it. I thought there would be more time with Caleb, yet I hurried to finish the sachet, wanting to hand it to him myself. Unsure if lavender suited him, I bought other dried flowers as well. In the end, I made 3 pouches, one shaped like a charm, one with a red lion, and one with a blue dragon, all strung together on a single cord. Excited, I carried them to his apartment, but when I arrived, movers were hauling furniture out. A woman on the sidewalk directed the workers. I asked quietly, Do you know where the tenant went? He moved a few days ago, she replied. I stood frozen, the words sinking in. He hadn't said a thing. I sat down on a nearby bench, staring at the gift bag that suddenly felt unbearably heavy. Why did people always leave once I began to trust them? With a hard swallow, I dropped the pouches into a trash bin and walked away. That night a storm raged outside my window. Caleb's number glowed on my phone screen. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I didn't press it. What would I say? Why did you leave? Maybe to him, I had just been a fleeting distraction. Then came a sharp knock. I opened the door to find Jackson King, drenched from head to toe. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. Did you forget?
His voice cracked.
It's my birthday. The old me might have softened. But now, standing in front of him, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just emptiness. It's my birthday, he repeated, his voice breaking. You promised you'd always be there. Happy birthday, I said flatly. Desperation flickered across his face. Are you still angry? He grabbed my hand and struck his own cheek with it, the slap echoing between us. When he tried again, I yanked my hand back. If you're going to fall apart, don't do it here. I told him coldly. A red mark spread across his skin. He muttered apologies, tears mixing with the rain. He spoke of regret, of mistakes, of how he'd gone looking for me at Westwood. He insisted he hadn't meant the things he said. It doesn't matter anymore, I said, exhaustion washing over me. Pain crossed his features. I reminded him of the confessions post, how with his family's power, he could have uncovered the truth in an instant if he'd cared to. Instead, he had chosen to believe Chloe's lies.
You knew me, Jax. You knew I wasn't like that.
But you still chose to believe it. He reached for me, but I stepped back. His words poured out in a flood. How he missed me, how he couldn't live without me. But all I saw was a boy who no longer resembled the one who used to shelter me in the rain, puffing his chest out like a hero. That version of him was long gone. Aubrey. A voice broke through the storm. Chloe came running, tears streaking her face. Please don't take him from me. He's all I have. Jax spun on her, shouting for her to leave. She begged, sobbing, her pale face almost fragile in the rain. I had no patience for either of them. Quietly, I closed the door. I had no interest in their drama, nor in being part of it. September arrived, bringing my final year of high school. My homeroom teacher had been right. Exams were the only thing that mattered now. My single focus was getting into Northwood University. Not long after, Maya sent me a gossip link. The headlines were brutal. Chloe's glittering dance titles had been bought. Her parents had bribed judges, even tried to purchase her way into a university arts program. The outrage online was immediate. Real dancers understood what it meant to earn those spots. The hours of practice until your muscles burned, the tears swallowed in silence, the injuries endured. To see someone cheat her way in was an insult. Chloe's fragile, innocent image cracked overnight. Universities rescinded her admissions offers. Her reputation collapsed. With nothing left, she clung to Jax like a lifeline. His frustration finally drove his parents to ship him off to boarding school, far away from her. The same gossip sites that once worshipped their perfect love story now devoured their downfall. I read the news like an outsider, then went back to my textbooks. The classroom countdown calendar grew thinner each day, the numbers racing toward exams. Everyone around me studied frantically, as if sheer effort could slow down time. Sometimes I caught sight of Jax across the street from school, just watching before disappearing again. When final exams finally came in June, the cicadas had fallen silent. The first day, rain poured down in sheets. I still remember the math paper. It felt merciless. By the fifth question, dread had settled in my chest. My palms were slick, and I was sure I was failing. Leaving the exam hall, the corridors echoed with complaints. Some students broke down crying. But the clock didn't pause for tears, and the tests didn't get easier because you were scared. The last exam was biology. I checked and rechecked every answer, then set my pen down. Outside, the campus glowed a lush green. Inside, the classroom was still. The proctor announced 5 minutes left. That was it. My high school life, my teenage years, they were over. When I stepped outside, I turned back to look at Westwood High. I'd only spent a year and a half there, yet it had marked me deeply. I smiled faintly, lifted a hand in a small wave. Goodbye, Westwood. Goodbye, 18. Youth doesn't last, though someone will always be 18 somewhere. Instead of going home after graduation, I joined Maya for a summer job at a coastal resort. Calls from home kept flashing across my phone screen. I ignored them all. People don't lose their way because no one is holding their hand, I thought. They lose it because they chase something shiny and fleeting. Then came the day exam results were released. My name wasn't online. It had been flagged. Seconds later, a text from the state board arrived. My breath hitched. A sob tore out of me as I clapped my hand over my mouth, trembling. I was first in the entire state. A score of 713. Every late night, every sacrifice, it had all mattered. Almost immediately, my parents reappeared in my life. On the local news, they smiled for cameras, boasting about their parenting methods and how they'd raised a state champion. Maya seethed beside me. They've got some nerve. They've never done a thing for you. I said nothing, just kept watching the screen. When reporters eventually came to me, I wore a polite, steady smile. I told the truth. A father who cheated, a mother who favored her son, a family that broke me, and a girl who kept fighting anyway. In a world ruled by social media, my interview spread quickly. People felt sorry for me, but more than that, they admired my strength. Soon after, I changed my phone number. Between the full scholarship from Northwood and the academic awards I'd earned, I had enough to cover the next 4 years on my own. On the second morning of orientation, the university held its official military training ceremony. My new roommates and I were already late, sprinting toward the main field packed with students. We couldn't even spot our assigned section in the sea of people. While I stood frozen, unsure what to do, a calm, familiar voice spoke from behind me. "Excuse me." I stiffened. That voice. I knew it. Turning slowly, I saw him. Standing in the sunlight, head slightly bent toward me. Caleb Hayes smiled faintly. "Long time no see." That afternoon, I rushed my roommates to the dining hall the instant we were dismissed. By evening, Caleb was waiting outside my dorm. He glanced at my friends, who tried to act like they weren't eavesdropping. "Mind if I borrow her for a moment?" I ignored him, heading for the door.
But his hand caught mine.
Even men on death row get a chance to explain. "Please, Aubrey." Reluctantly, I followed him to a quieter spot. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I never meant to vanish. My family lives in Northwood. I had a terrible fight with them and ran away to Crestwood to finish school. Then my grandmother got sick. She's the only one who's ever cared for me. Not long after, my phone was stolen. By the time I replaced it, you'd already blocked me." He looked away, guilt written across his face. "I came back once during senior year, but I was afraid that seeing me would only hurt you more." "Aubrey, I'm not lying. Every word is true." Girls passing by stole glances at us, whispering behind their hands. I just stared at our shadows on the ground, my thoughts tangled. At last, I nodded. "I get it." I didn't feel anger anymore, and happiness seemed out of reach. All I wanted was to leave. If that's all, I should go. Before I could step away, Caleb pulled me into his arms. "I like you, Aubrey Hale," he murmured against my hair. "This isn't some game. I've never dated anyone. The girl who spread those rumors about me? She chased me, and when I rejected her, she made them up. I swear." His warmth sank into me, his breath brushing my ear. "Be my girlfriend." I didn't reply. I just pulled free and ran. After orientation, our paths split. Caleb studied computer science on the East Campus, while I was in law on the West. He was popular almost instantly, his face plastered across the school's confession pages. Someone even posted, tagging everyone swooning over him. "Give it up. He's already taken." He spends all his free time with his girlfriend in the law school. Attached was a photo of me by the window, stone-faced, while Caleb sat beside me like a scolded puppy. I just told him to stop skipping his own classes, but the rumor spread that he was hopelessly devoted. Meanwhile, Jax had applied to universities in Northwood but couldn't make the cut. On Christmas Day, I rushed back to the dorm gates after forgetting my phone and froze. Jackson King was waiting. His eyes lit up.
"Aubrey."
"I finally found you." I tried to walk past, frowning. He wore the old jacket and scarf I'd given him years ago. "It's Christmas," he pleaded. "Have dinner with me?" A familiar voice cut in, cold as steel. "Asking out another man's girlfriend? Shouldn't you check with me first?" Caleb stepped between us. Jax's fists clenched, his face pale. "Aubrey, is it true?" "It's true," I said evenly. "I have a boyfriend. Don't come looking for me again."
He shook his head, wild-eyed.
"But you said you'd marry me when we were kids." His voice cracked. "I'm the one who lost you." Caleb grabbed his collar. "That's right. And you should thank fate you did. Now leave." He shoved Jax, who staggered back and collapsed onto a bench, broken. As Caleb led me away, I heard Jax whisper behind us, "Aubrey, I'm sorry." Not long after, my parents arrived in Northwood. They begged me to reconcile with Jax, their business crumbling without the king's support. I stared at them, horrified. "If you never loved me," I shouted, voice shaking, "why did you even have me?" My mother jabbed her finger at my forehead, her shriek cutting through me. "Because the doctor said you'd be a boy. Otherwise you never would have been born." The world spun. My ears rang. Then Caleb's arms closed around me, his hands covering my ears. "Don't listen. None of it matters." Soon after, my father's company collapsed. Jax had been waiting, expecting me to crawl back for help. Instead, I had one final gift for him. Chloe Reed, the girl he once loved, had been searching for him. The next time Jax texted me, leaving his hotel address, I forwarded it to her. The following day, a heavily pregnant Chloe stormed the King Corporation lobby, threatening to accuse Jax of assault unless he acknowledged her child. But Chloe had her own secrets. Another man had been funding her lifestyle for years, and when he discovered her deception, he tracked Jax down and stabbed him, leaving him half dead and without a spleen. Chloe herself didn't escape. Her admirers' rage left her beaten into a permanent vegetative state. The scandal was everywhere, online and off. As for me, I vowed to walk forward toward a brighter life, leaving them behind in the filth they created. Aubrey Hale, where's my sachet? You promised. Caleb's constant pestering eventually wore me down. I handed him a small embroidered charm from my bag. His entire face lit up, as if I'd given him the world. Years later, in the acknowledgments of my first book, I would write the final line, "And to my husband, who became the salvation of my life."